I want to talk with you about there is a time to search and a time to give up. That's a hard thing to do. Who wants to give up? Let's imagine, though, you got a ladder and you're climbing a house, and the ladder's really good and it's sturdy and you're doing a good job. You're climbing that house, and then you're told, "Oh, by the way, you're climbing a ladder on the wrong house." And you say, "But wait, I've worked hard for this. Why? What do you mean?" You got to move the ladder. The house is across the street, not this one. And you say, "No, no." Well, eventually that's your time to give up. You got to move the ladder. Now, suppose that ladder represents a day or a week or years and you discover it's the wrong house. And you say no. And then hopefully you say yes and you give up. There is a time to give up. The New World Order has come. Now, it didn't happen overnight. It's been around. If you study history, you can see the New World Order might have been there way back with Jesus knocking over the money changer tables. It was a violent act that Jesus did. He really was against the central bank of his time and the Federal Reserve and the economy, and then the new language we hear, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. We'll build back better, and this is what's going on, and you don't want to believe it. And the truth is, the New World Order, which is progressing every day, it's not so hard to understand, but it's very hard to accept. Donald Trump, on September 23rd of 2019, was in Manhattan. He was at the United Nations building, which is 42nd Street on the river. And that same day, Wendy and I were in New York City. She was getting a follow-up, and thank God for the miraculous CAR T-cell clinical trial that she's been on for healing of cancer. But we were there for follow-up treatment or follow-up visit. But on that day, I was also led to do Sermon on the Mount at 47th and Broadway, almost at the Hudson River. So two sides of Manhattan, there's Donald Trump. But Donald Trump is appealing to the United Nations, which is the new world capital of the world, that the New World Order doesn't work. It's bad. It's not only bad for America, it's bad for everybody. And as long as I, Donald Trump, am president, we'll never have a New World Order, on and on and on. And here I am, on the other side, unknown person in my Jesus clothes, making my Broadway debut, by the way. And it's amazing. I was giving the antithesis to the New World Order. I was giving the answer. The law that gives freedom is what Jesus' brother James says, Yaakov. He says this in the book of James. The law that brings freedom. He was giving a Sermon on the Mount. He was setting people free, and he was doing it again. The Holy Spirit through me, even me. And those words were live the same day. Later that day, Nancy Pelosi began the impeachment inquiry on Donald Trump. The same day he was making his appeal, very eloquent appeal, I might add, at the United Nations to not do the New World Order. But that's when they began the impeachment inquiry. And then in January, the impeachment inquiry ended. They didn't get him thrown out of office. And then COVID began. And then on, and the COVID mandates and the overreach of government, and on and on and on and on. I want to digress for a moment. I want to talk to you about the New World Order. I mentioned it's been going on for a long time. Back, It's a Wonderful Life. I got one more clip from It's a Wonderful Life. I've been doing this lately. I want to show you George Bailey with Potter. Potter represents the New World Order, the Great Reset. And he's coming right at George Bailey, but he's making him an offer. And George Bailey is listening. Let's look at this clip right now.
Well, what's your point, Mr. Potter?
My point? My point is I want to hire you.
Hire me?
I want you to manage my affairs, run my properties. George, I'll start you out at $20,000 a year.
$20,000 a year?
You wouldn't mind living in the nicest house in town? Buying your wife a lot of fine clothes, a couple of business trips to New York a year, maybe once in a while Europe. You wouldn't mind that, would you, George?
Would I? you're not talking to somebody else around here, are you? You know, this is me. You remember me? George Bailey.
George Bailey. Yeah. George Bailey, whose ship has just come in. Provided he has enough brains to climb aboard.
Holy mackerel. Well, how about the building and loan?
Oh, confound it, man. Are you afraid of success? I'm offering you a 3 years contract at $20,000 a year starting today. Is it a deal or isn't it?
Well, Mr. Plunter, I know I ought to jump at the chance, but I wonder if it'd be possible for you to give me 24 hours to think it over.
Sure. You go on home and talk about it to your wife.
I'd like to do that.
Yeah, then in the meantime, I'll draw up the papers.
All right, sir.
Okay, George?
Okay, Mr. Potter. No, wait a minute here. Wait a minute. I don't need 24 hours. I don't have to talk to anybody. I know right now. And the answer's no. Doggone it. You sit around here and you spin your little webs and you think the whole world revolves around you and your money. Well, it doesn't, Mr. Potter. In the whole vast configuration of things, I'd say you were nothing but a scurvy little spider. And that goes for you, too. And it goes for you, too.
So that's one of my favorite scenes from It's a Wonderful Life. Ugh, George Bailey, he shakes hands with the devil, and But the truth is, George was turning away $20,000 a year and a lot of prestige to remain at $2,000 a year at the Bailey Building and Loan. And George walks away from the New World Order offer, but he doesn't walk away from the misery, the horrible dilemma of having to live a life he hates. He hates working with the Bailey Building and Loan. He hates making $2,000. But he walks away from, and this is where a lot of us are at. We don't really believe the New World Order. We don't really want it, but we really haven't replaced it with the freedom that can come from the truth. It's painful. Healing is painful. It's painful. I know it's painful. I know. I'm a human being too. I'm just like you. We're alike. We're humans. But here it is. George is just not happy, and then it goes for decades like this. And look at us. We're living in a time where, there's a schism between people. We're not even allowed to talk. I have pastors that tell me in their church, they got the masked people and the non-masked people. They got the vaccination people and non-vaccination people. And the two sides aren't even talking. They talk about something else. How can you build depth if you just avoid conversation? It's the new isolation. It's the new isolation that is happening from the world, the flesh, and the devil, and we got to catch it. No. Do you know Robert Kennedy Jr. wrote a book called The Real Anthony Fauci? I read it. I'm reading it, that is. I never got a vaccination, okay? I don't believe in it. I think they're dangerous, too. Aside from that, maybe you don't feel that way. But can we talk about it? That's what I'm trying to say. We've got to share. We can't be afraid of sharing. We've got to get at it because it's incremental. These victories we have to find the answers. When Wendy got healed of cancer, we did it incrementally. We went from one strategy to the next, breaking through. This is the healing that God is offering. This is exactly what's happening today. The Bible also says there's a time to keep and a time to throw away. Jesus, 2,000 years ago, I believe, was operating like this. He was seeing Judaism as entrapped by a few people who were running the show. The Pharisees were running the show. He's from the Galilee region, and he, in effect, leaves the synagogue, not literally, but figuratively. He leaves the synagogue and goes out into the Galilee region, Galilee of the Gentiles, Isaiah says, and he starts a preaching ministry, a healing ministry, and that's, by the way, is where the Sermon on the Mount was given. He fed thousands of people, but a great rejuvenation. He wasn't changing Judaism. He was revealing what it is, what it was. His disciples later on, after he died for our sins and rose from the dead, his disciples taught, and they taught. It was Messianic Judaism, and they taught it. And the word Christian came in when they reached the Greeks and the Gentiles. It became for everybody, a freedom message for everybody. What we're seeing in these days before the Lord's coming is a do-over of the Galilee region. What we're seeing with the truckers going out there and they're singing Amazing Grace. I mean, who are these people to talk about God? What do they know? They want freedom. That's what happened on January 6th in 2021. People who don't know anything about God and people who do know a lot about God were meeting. The harvest and the believers are coming together, and there's revival. Revival. Because everybody was coming to the same place at the same time. And that's what God is doing today. He's bringing us all to the same place at the same time. If you got some insight into the Bible, you're a born-again Christian, you're sure of it, and you're arrogant about it. He's challenging that. The oppression that's happening from the Great Reset, the New World Order, the Antichrist spirit, it's all talked about in the Bible. The Bible promotes this. It's all happening. But you overcome that, you go right through it, and you see you got something in common with everybody. You love your neighbor. You're just alike. We're being oppressed. If you know something about God, you have something to give in a very special way. But it's not, I've got it, you don't. No, we all need this. You see, the time it takes you to walk to the door when Jesus is knocking, that time is your revival. But your revival isn't always happy-do. It's a time to weep. There's a time to laugh. There's a time to absolutely drop your guard and realize I've been holding on to something like George Bailey did. Like, I just got to face it. And I do. And I find out God is calling me into revival or salvation. God of the universe, the Creator, God Himself, Yeshua, Jesus is here. He's calling us into freedom, and we all want it. And He's here for us now. He's knocking at your heart right now. I'm Dennis Cole. It's my pleasure to share Narrowgate News with you. Thank you, and God bless you.